You get the chemical reward of success without having to do any of the grueling, lonely work. And once you get that cheap dopamine hit, your motivation to actually build the business vanishes. You have already received the applause. This is the ego trap. And it is the reason why 99% of people never follow through on their plans. If you want to join the 1%, you must do the exact opposite. You must become a ghost. Rule number 1 of the 6-month reset is absolute silence. Stop announcing your moves. Stop telling your coworkers about your side hustle. Stop posting motivational quotes on your social media. In fact, delete the social media apps from your phone entirely. Your business plan does not need the validation of people who are broke. Your financial future does not require the approval of people who are trapped in the exact same rat race you are trying to escape. The element of surprise is the most powerful weapon a builder has. When you build in the dark, nobody can criticize your half-finished foundation. Nobody can project their own fears and insecurities onto your ambition. You protect your mental energy by keeping it entirely to yourself. Let them think you are boring. Let them think you have lost your edge. Let them assume whatever they want. Their assumptions do not pay your mortgage, and their opinions do not build your wealth. Now, you might be asking, why exactly 6 months? Why not 30 days? Why not a year? 30 days is a diet. 30 days is a temporary sprint. It is long enough to lose a few pounds, but it is completely insufficient to change the financial trajectory of your life. On the other hand, a year is too long for the human mind to conceptualize in making a radical behavioral shift. You will lose urgency. 6 months is the perfect scientifically backed window. It is exactly 180 days. From a biological standpoint, it takes roughly 6 months to completely rewire the neural pathways in your brain. It takes 6 months to physically break your dopamine addiction to the constant stimulation of your smartphone and replace it with the slow, deep satisfaction of focused work. Furthermore, 6 months is the exact amount of time required to go from absolute zero to highly competent in any high-income skill. Whether you are learning to read financial statements, learning to write code, mastering digital marketing, or analyzing real estate markets, 180 days of deep, uninterrupted evening focus will put you in the top 10% of that field. But the most important reason for the 6-month timeline is the law of compounding. Compounding is the 8th wonder of the world. It is how Berkshire Hathaway grew into a billion-dollar empire. But compounding does not just apply to money. It applies to effort. During the first 2 months of your disappearance, you are going to put in massive amounts of work. And you are going to see absolutely zero results. You will read books, you will study markets, you will build prototypes, and your bank account will not move a single inch. This is where the weak people quit. They expect linear returns. But in month 3, you will notice a shift in your understanding. In month 4, you might see your first small financial return. And by month 6, the snowball begins to roll under its own massive weight. The skills you have stacked on top of each other begin to generate exponential value. But you will never reach month 6 if you do not fiercely protect your environment. Which brings us to the most painful and most necessary part of this entire process. You cannot take everyone with you to the top. If you want to survive the 6-month reset, you are going to have to make some brutal decisions about the people standing right next to you. There is a universal law of human behavior that you cannot escape, no matter how disciplined you think you are. You are the exact average of the 5 people you spend the most time with. You will earn the average of their incomes. You will possess the average of their ambition, and you will adopt the average of their excuses. If you surround yourself with 5 people who are broke, complaining, and terrified of taking risks, I absolutely guarantee that you will be the 6th. This brings us to the 3rd and easily the most painful phase of your 6-month reset. The brutal audit. If you are going to disappear and build your financial foundation, you cannot drag your current social circle into the laboratory with you. Imagine that your ambition, your intellect, and your work ethic are the engine of a massive ship. You can build the most powerful engine in the world, but if the anchor is firmly dropped at the bottom of the ocean, that ship is not moving a single inch. Your toxic habits are not your only anchors. The people you spend your time with are the heaviest anchors of all. When you begin this 6-month reset, you are going to encounter 3 specific types of anchors. You must learn to identify them immediately. The first anchor is the Friday night friend. This is the person who only values you for your ability to entertain them. When you tell this person that you cannot go out drinking on Friday night because you are staying home to read a financial report or write code, they will not support you. They will try to make you feel guilty. They will say things like, you have changed. You don't know how to have fun anymore. You are taking life too seriously. You must understand that they are not saying this because they miss your company. They are saying this because your sudden display of discipline makes them feel incredibly guilty about their own laziness. They need you to be at the bar with them, wasting your time and your money, so they don't have to face the reality of their own wasted potential. The second anchor is the complainer. This person is a professional victim. Every time you speak to them, they drain your energy by complaining about the economy, complaining about the costs, complaining about the government, and complaining about how unfair the world is. They consume negativity and they exhale defeat. If you allow the complainer into your inner circle during your 6 month reset, their pessimistic worldview will slowly infect your mindset. You cannot build $1 billion holding company if you are constantly listening to someone tell you that the sky is falling. The third anchor is the most dangerous because it is usually someone who genuinely loves you. I call this anchor the safe path relative. This could be a parent, a sibling, or a spouse. Out of genuine fear for your safety, they will try to pull you back into the matrix. When you take a risk, or when you sacrifice your free time to build an asset, they will tell you to be realistic. They will tell you to just get a secure job, keep your head down, and wait for retirement. Their intentions are good, but their advice is absolutely lethal to your freedom. My brilliant partner, Charlie Munger, had a very specific, ruthless rule when it came to dealing with anchors. Charlie said, if you identify a toxic person in your life, you must cut them out immediately, and you must do it without a single apology. Now, this sounds incredibly harsh. Society tells you that you must be accommodating, that you must be loyal to your childhood friends, even if they are dragging you down. But let me ask you a question. How can you possibly help anyone else if you yourself are drowning? You cannot pull a drowning man out of the quicksand if you are standing right in the middle of it with him. You have to get to solid ground first. For the next 6 months, you are going to have to become deeply, unapologetically selfish. You have to protect your time, your energy, and your focus with the ferocity of a guard dog. You are going to have to stop answering certain text messages. You are going to have to decline wedding invitations. You are going to have to miss the holiday parties. You must look at your phone right now. Look at the last 5 people you texted and ask yourself a brutal question. Are these people builders or are they consumers? Are they talking about ideas? Or are they talking about other people? If they are consumers, you must hit the mute button on those relationships. If you do not have the courage to cut the anchors, your 6 month reset will completely fail by week 3. The gravity of your old life will pull you back in. But if you do have the courage to create that boundary, you are going to experience something terrifying. Once the noise of the crowd is gone and the anchors are cut, you will be left completely alone. And that is when the real agony begins. Most motivational speakers will tell you that the moment you decide to change your life, you will feel a massive surge of empowering energy. They tell you that you will sit down at your desk, filled with inspiration, and immediately start building your empire. But I am not a motivational speaker, and I am not here to lie to you. The truth about the 6 month reset is far more brutal. When you finally turn off your phone, close your door, and sever the ties with your toxic anchors, you are not going to feel inspired. You are going to feel panicked. When the noise of the world abruptly stops, you are thrust into a psychological space that I call the void. The void is the deafening silence of an empty room. It is the exact moment you realize that there are no more distractions, no more excuses, and no one else to blame. For the first 30 days, the void will feel like absolute agony. And there is a very specific biological reason for this. For the past decade, your brain has been deeply conditioned to receive an artificial chemical hit of dopamine every 3 minutes. You get it from scrolling through infinite social media feeds, from checking the news cycle, and from the constant pinging of text messages. Your brain has become addicted to this cheap, effortless stimulation. When you suddenly remove all of those triggers, your brain enters a state of literal chemical withdrawal. You will sit down at your desk with a financial report or a blank document for your business plan, and within 5 minutes, your hand will automatically twitch, reaching for a phone that isn't there. Your chest will feel tight. You will experience an overwhelming, irrational urge to turn on the television just to have some background noise, just to hear another human voice. You will feel intense FOMO. The fear of missing out. You will imagine your friends having the time of their lives at the bar while you are sitting alone in the dark. This is the crucible. This is the exact moment where the 99% break. They reach the void, they feel the agonizing discomfort of the silence, and they immediately surrender. They turn the television back on. They text the toxic friend. They run back into the warm, comfortable embrace of the crowd. If you want to survive the void, you must completely reframe how you view the act of being alone. In the English language, there are two distinct words that describe being by yourself. The first word is loneliness. Loneliness is a state of profound suffering. It is the feeling that you are isolated against your will. It is the belief that the crowd is having a massive party and you are not invited. Loneliness is a state of emotional weakness. The second word is solitude. Solitude describes the exact same physical reality. You are still sitting alone in an empty room. But the psychological state is entirely different. Solitude is a state of immense power. It is a choice. It is the conscious decision to isolate yourself in order to achieve a higher objective. Solitude is the laboratory where billionaires are built. It is the only place in the universe where the noise of the crowd is finally quiet enough for you to actually hear your own thoughts. For the first time in your life, you are not reacting to the agenda of the news anchor or the agenda of your boss or the agenda of your friends. You are finally alone with your own strategic mind. When you embrace solitude, something miraculous happens to your brain. You must allow yourself to experience deep, uninterrupted boredom. Modern society treats boredom like a disease that must be cured immediately with a screen. But boredom is actually the precursor to immense creativity. When you starve your brain of cheap dopamine and mindless entertainment, your brain will panic at first. But eventually, it will adapt. To entertain itself, your mind will start generating high quality ideas. You will suddenly figure out the solution to a complex business problem that has been bothering you for months. You will connect two seemingly unrelated financial concepts and spot an investment opportunity that everyone else missed. The silence, which initially felt like a terrifying enemy, will transform into your greatest ally. By the end of the first 30 days, the withdrawal symptoms will fade. You will no longer crave the noise. In fact, you will begin to fiercely protect the silence. The solitude will become the blank canvas upon which you paint your wealth. You will stop feeling like a victim of isolation, and you will start feeling like the architect of your own destiny. But what happens when the 6 months are over? What happens when you finally open the door and step back outside the door? The final phase of this journey is the most rewarding, but it is also the most shocking. Because the person who walks out of that room is not the same person who walked in.
Take him down.
When you successfully navigate the agonizing withdrawal of the first 30 days, and you fiercely protect your solitude from the anchors trying to pull you down, you will eventually cross the threshold in month 4. And it is here, in the second half of your disappearance, that you will witness the most powerful force in the universe. The magic of compounding. I have often compared building wealth to rolling a snowball down a very long hill. During the first 3 months of your reset, you are not rolling the snowball down the hill. You are standing at the bottom, packing the snow together with your bare hands and pushing a massive, heavy boulder up a very steep incline. It is exhausting, backbreaking work, and it feels like you are making absolutely no progress. But in month 4, you finally reach the crest of the hill. The resistance suddenly disappears. The neural pathways in your brain have successfully rewired themselves. The deep, focused work that used to require immense willpower now feels entirely automatic. Reading a dense financial report that used to take you 4 hours now takes you 40 minutes. The complex coding language that looked like absolute gibberish in week 1 suddenly clicks together and makes perfect sense. Your emotional control compounds as well. You no longer feel a spike of anxiety when your phone doesn't ring. You no longer feel the desperate need to check social media to validate your existence. You have developed the quiet, unshakable confidence of a man who is entirely self-reliant. And as your skills and your discipline compound, your capital finally begins to follow. The side business you spent 3 months building in the dark suddenly gets its first paying customer, then its 10th, then its 50th. The snowball is finally rolling down the hill, gathering mass and speed with every passing day. And then the calendar turns. You wake up on day 181, the 6 months are over. You stand in front of the mirror, and while your physical face might look exactly the same, the aura you project is completely different. You have done what 99% of the human population will never have the discipline to do. You have mastered your own mind. Now the time has come for re-entry. You decide to accept an invitation to dinner with your old circle of friends, the Friday night friends, the complainers, the people you had to put on mute to survive the reset. You sit down at the table, and within 5 minutes, you will experience a profound, shocking realization. They will start talking, they will complain about their terrible bosses, they will gossip about celebrities, they will make the exact same excuses for their financial failures that they were making 6 months ago. And as you listen to them, you will feel an overwhelming sense of distance. You will realize that you don't fit in anymore. Their jokes will not seem funny. Their problems will seem entirely trivial because you now possess the mindset to know that their problems are completely self-inflicted. Many people view this moment of realization as a tragedy. They feel a deep sense of grief, thinking that they have lost their friends. But I am here to tell you, from the perspective of a man who has lived almost a century, that this is not a tragedy. It is the greatest victory of your life. You have not lost your friends. You have simply outgrown the matrix. You have graduated. You cannot expect a high school student to understand the curriculum of a university professor, and you cannot expect consumers to understand the mindset of a builder. You will leave that dinner table, and you will walk out into the night feeling lighter than you have ever felt in your entire life. You are free. You are no longer bound by the gravity of the crowd. You have built the skills, the discipline, and the foundation to spend the rest of your life answering to no one but yourself. So, as we bring this masterclass to a close, my final message to you is very simple. I am not asking you to buy a course. I am not asking you to invest in a specific stock. I am asking you to buy back your own life. Do not wait for the new year. Do not wait for Monday. The reset begins tonight. Look at your calendar and cancel your weekend plans. Pick up your smartphone and delete the applications that are stealing your future. Say no to the people who are anchoring you to mediocrity. Embrace the void. Fall in love with the silence. Disappear into the darkness. Put your head down and do the work. And 6 months from now, when you finally emerge, you won't need to announce your success to anyone. Your results will make all the noise for you. Thank you for listening. I will see you on the other side. Charlie Munger once said something that I believe is the absolute most important piece of financial advice anyone can ever receive. He said, the first $100,000 is a bitch, but you have got to do it. I do not care what you have to do. If it means walking everywhere and not eating anything that was not purchased with a coupon, find a way to get your hands on $100,000. After that, you can ease off the gas a little bit. When Charlie said that, he was not trying to be harsh. He was simply stating a mathematical and psychological fact. The journey from $0 to $100,000 is the hardest financial transition you will ever make in your entire life. It breaks almost everyone who attempts it. Most people quit. They get to 10,000 or 30,000 or 50,000 and they get exhausted. They look around at their friends who are buying new cars on credit, taking vacations to Europe and eating at expensive restaurants, and they feel like they are punishing themselves for no reason. So they break their discipline. They spend their savings and they reset the clock back to zero. This cycle of starting and stopping is why the vast majority of the middle class will never experience true financial freedom. They are trapped in a permanent state of beginnings. They never push through the brutal gravity of the initial phase to understand why the first one, 100,000, is so difficult. You have to understand how compound interest actually feels in the real world. We all know the math on paper, but the human brain is not wired to understand exponential growth intuitively. When you first start investing, compound interest is practically invisible. If you save $10,000 and it grows by 10% in a year, you have made $1,000. $1,000 over 12 months is less than $3 a day. It does not change your life. It does not pay your rent. It does not allow you to quit your job. you are making massive sacrifices, working overtime, cutting your expenses to the bone, and your reward is $3 a day. It feels pointless. Your brain tells you that the effort is not worth the outcome. This is the danger zone. This is where 90% of people surrender to the temptation of instant gratification. But if you can push through that pain and you reach $100,000, the mathematics of the universe fundamentally change in your favor. A 10% return on $100,000 is $10,000 a year. That is nearly $1,000 a month of entirely passive income. You did not trade any hours for that money. You did not have to deal with a boss or commute through traffic. That money was generated purely by the capital you deployed. Suddenly, the compound interest is no longer invisible. It is doing the heavy lifting for you. The second 100,000 is infinitely easier than the first because your first 100,000 is now working alongside you, acting like a second employee who never sleeps, never takes a vacation, and never asks for a raise. By the time you are working on your fifth or 600,000, your capital is earning more money in a year than you could ever save from your salary. You have reached escape velocity, but you can never experience that magic if you quit at 30,000. The reason the first 100,000 is a psychological nightmare is because it requires a complete destruction of your current identity. You have to stop being a consumer and start being a producer. You have to stop viewing money as a mechanism to buy status and start viewing it as raw material to build an empire. Society is designed to extract your money from your pockets as quickly as possible. Every advertisement, every social media post, every cultural expectation is pushing you to spend. To save your first 100,000, you have to become socially invisible. You have to be willing to look poor while you are actually becoming rich. You have to drive a reliable, boring car while your broke friends drive leased luxury vehicles. You have to live in a modest apartment while people with half your net worth take out massive mortgages to impress their neighbors. It requires a level of emotional stoicism that very few people possess. You are essentially starving your ego to feed your future. And that process is incredibly painful. When you are starting from zero, every single dollar matters. You cannot afford to make mistakes. You cannot afford to lose money on stupid investments or impulsive purchases. Your margin of error is zero. You are pushing a boulder up a steep hill. And if you let go for even 1 second, it rolls all the way back to the bottom. You must adopt a mentality of absolute ruthlessness when it comes to your expenses. I am not talking about skipping 1 coffee a week. I am talking about fundamentally restructuring your life to maximize your savings rate. You must audit every single dollar that leaves your bank account with the intensity of a forensic accountant. If an expense does not contribute directly to your survival or your wealth accumulation, you must eliminate it without hesitation. You have to understand that every dollar you spend today is stealing $10 from your future self. When you look at a new phone that costs $1,000, you should not see $1,000. You should see the $10,000 that money could become if it was invested over the next 2 decades. That is the billionaire mindset. You measure the cost of things not by their price tag, but by the opportunity cost of the capital. One of the biggest traps people fall into during this initial phase is the belief that they can simply budget their way to wealth. Frugality is absolutely essential, but it has a mathematical limit. You can only cut your expenses down to zero. You still need to eat, you still need a place to sleep, and you still need to pay for electricity. Once you have optimized your spending, you must turn your entire focus toward increasing your income. You cannot save your way to $100,000 on a minimum wage salary. It will take too long, and you will lose your motivation. You must view your income as a shovel, and the size of your shovel determines how fast you can dig yourself out of a financial hole. If you have a small shovel, you need to work harder to make it bigger. This means upgrading your skills, taking on more responsibility at work, starting a side business, or completely changing industries. The fastest way to accelerate your progress toward that first 100,000 is to increase your earning power while keeping your expenses completely frozen. This is where the concept of lifestyle inflation destroys so many promising futures. People get a promotion or a raise and immediately upgrade their apartment, buy a nicer car, and start eating out more often. They increase their shovel size, but they also increase the size of the hole they are digging. So they remain trapped in the exact same position.
just with nicer surroundings. If you want to build wealth quickly, you must capture the entire margin of your new income. If your salary goes from 50,000 to 80,000, you must continue living exactly as you did at 50,000 and channel every single penny of that $30,000 difference directly into your investments. That is how you compress decades of wealth building into a few short years. You have to treat your savings rate as a non-negotiable tax that you pay to yourself before anyone else gets a dime. Another massive hurdle in the journey to 100,000 is the psychological pressure of the people around you. Human beings are social creatures. We are biologically programmed to conform to the behavior of our tribe. If your tribe consists of people who are broke, who complain about money constantly, and who use debt to finance a fake lifestyle, you will face immense social pressure to do the same. They will call you cheap. They will tell you that you need to live a little. They will try to convince you that saving money is a waste of time because the economy is rigged anyway. You must understand that their criticism is not about you. It is about them. Your discipline is a mirror that reflects their own lack of control. By choosing to save and invest, you are challenging the narrative that keeps them comfortable in their poverty. You must be willing to walk this path alone for a while. You have to curate your environment ruthlessly. Stop listening to financial advice from people who are drowning in credit card debt. Seek out mentors. Read books written by people who have actually built wealth and consume information that reinforces your goals rather than tearing them down. Your mindset is your most valuable asset during this phase, and you must protect it from the toxicity of the broke majority. It is also crucial to recognize the difference between looking rich and actually being wealthy. The people you see on social media, flaunting designer clothes and driving imported sports cars, are very rarely wealthy. In most cases, they are highly leveraged. They are using their future labor to pay for their current ego. True wealth is silent. True wealth is the freedom to wake up in the morning and do exactly what you want to do without worrying about how to pay the bills. It is the security of knowing that if you lose your job tomorrow, your family will not miss a single meal. That level of profound peace cannot be purchased at a luxury boutique. It is built dollar by dollar, share by share, through relentless discipline and delayed gratification. During the grind to your first 100,000, you will face countless moments of doubt. You will have months where the stock market crashes and your portfolio loses $10,000 in a single week. You will feel like all your sacrifices were for nothing. This is the ultimate test. This is the barrier that separates the actual investors from the tourists. When the market drops, the tourists panic and sell their assets at the absolute bottom, locking in their losses and destroying their progress. The real investor understands that market volatility is simply the price of admission. They do not look at a market crash as a tragedy. They look at it as a clearance sale. They keep buying, they keep accumulating assets at a discount, and they trust the long-term trajectory of the economy. You must divorce your emotions from your portfolio balance. Your job is not to outsmart the market on a daily basis. Your job is to consistently acquire high-quality assets and hold them for decades. The people who win this game are not the ones with the highest IQs. They are the ones with the strongest stomachs. They are the ones who can watch their net worth fluctuate wildly without changing their strategy. Consistency is the ultimate superpower in finance. It is not about making one brilliant trade that makes you a millionaire overnight. That is gambling. And gambling is a tax on people who do not understand mathematics. Wealth building is about executing a simple, boring strategy over and over again until the math inevitably works in your favor. So, what is the actual system for hitting that first $100,000? It is shockingly simple, but it requires relentless execution. First, you must eliminate all high-interest consumer debt. You cannot build a castle on a foundation of quicksand. If you have credit card debt charging you 20% interest, that is a financial emergency of the highest order. You must stop investing, stop going to restaurants, and attack that debt with every spare dollar you have. Paying off a 20% loan is mathematically identical to earning a guaranteed 20% return on your money, which is a return that not even the greatest investors in the world can guarantee. Once the toxic debt is gone, you build a cash emergency fund that covers 3 to 6 months of your basic living expenses. This is your psychological armor. It prevents you from having to sell your investments or take on new debt when your car breaks down or you face an unexpected medical bill. Only after you have built this defensive wall do you go on the offensive. And the offensive strategy is incredibly boring. You set up an automatic transfer from your checking account to your investment account to occur the exact same day your paycheck arrives. You do not trust yourself to save whatever is left over at the end of the month, because human nature guarantees there will be nothing left. You automate the process so that the money disappears before you even have a chance to look at it. And what do you buy with that money? You buy a broad market S&P 500 index fund. You do not buy individual stocks. You do not buy crypto. And you do not try to time the market. You buy a tiny slice of the 500 largest, most successful companies in America. And you let the collective genius of thousands of CEOs and millions of employees work on your behalf. You ignore the financial news. You ignore the talking heads on television predicting the next recession. And you just keep buying month after month, year after year, no matter what the stock market is doing. When you finally cross that $100,000 threshold, something profound happens. It is not just a number on a screen. It is a fundamental shift in your reality. You will wake up the next morning and realize that your money is now making more money while you sleep than you used to make working a part-time job. You will realize that you are no longer entirely dependent on your next paycheck to survive. The anxiety that has hummed quietly in the background of your life for years will suddenly vanish. You will walk into your workplace with a different posture because you know that you have options. You are no longer a hostage to your employer. If your boss mistreats you, you can walk away because you have 100,000 soldiers working for you in the background. This is the true power of capital. It buys you sovereignty over your own time and your own dignity. The journey from 0 to 100,000 is a gauntlet designed to test your character. It will force you to face your insecurities. It will force you to redefine what truly brings you happiness, and it will force you to become a fundamentally different person. But the person you become on the other side of that milestone is someone who is immune to the financial traps that enslave the rest of society. You will have built the discipline, the knowledge, and the emotional resilience to navigate any economic climate. So do whatever it takes. Cut the budget, work the extra shifts, ignore the judgment of your peers, and push that boulder up the hill until you reach the summit. The view from the top is worth every single ounce of the pain. And the momentum you build will carry you to levels of wealth that you currently cannot even imagine. This is not just about money. It is about freedom. It is about refusing to be a victim of a system designed to keep you broke. The first 100,000 is the price of admission to the greatest game in the world, the game of true financial independence. Pay the price, earn your ticket, and change the trajectory of your family's future forever.
Is that my next one? Is this thing right here?
There is one final trap that I must warn you about, and it is the most insidious one of all. It is the temptation of the victory lap. Many people grind for years to reach that first $100,000. And the moment they cross the finish line, they feel a sudden overwhelming urge to reward themselves. They think they have made it. So they go to a dealership and finance a brand new $50,000 luxury car. Or they take an incredibly expensive vacation that they put on credit cards. In the span of a single weekend, they completely sabotage the compounding machine they just spent years building. You must understand that hitting $100,000 is not the finish line. It is merely the starting line of real wealth creation. If you drain your capital, the moment it finally becomes powerful enough to work for you, you are effectively killing the golden goose right as it starts laying the eggs. The discipline that got you to this point must become a permanent aspect of your character. You do not stop living below your means just because your net worth has a comma in it. You maintain the exact same frugal, focused mindset until your passive income from your investments completely covers your lifestyle expenses. That is the true definition of financial independence. Furthermore, the journey to your first 100,000 is not just about accumulating currency. It is actually a brutal training ground for your financial intellect. The person who inherits $100,000 is fundamentally different from the person who earns and saves $100,000 from scratch. The person who inherits it will almost certainly lose it because they do not possess the psychological armor or the financial IQ required to manage it. But the person who builds it dollar by dollar has been forged in the fire. They have learned how to analyze expenses, how to delay gratification, and how to stomach market volatility. They have acquired skills that nobody can ever take away from them. Even if they lost every single penny tomorrow, they could rebuild it twice as fast because they now have the blueprint installed in their mind. This is why the rich get richer. They are not just compounding their money, they are compounding their financial intelligence. So when you feel exhausted, when you feel like the progress is too slow, remember that you are not just building a bank account, you are building a new version of yourself. The struggle is the exact mechanism that qualifies you for the wealth you are seeking. Do not cheat the process. Embrace the grind. Keep your head down. And let the mathematics of compounding do the heavy lifting. Your future self is depending on the sacrifices you make today. You have done everything exactly the way they told you to do it. You went to school, you studied hard, you got a respectable job, you show up on time, and you put a portion of your paycheck into a savings account at your local bank. You follow the rules of society to the letter. And yet, every single year, you feel like you are falling further and further behind. You look at the price of housing, the cost of goods, the expense of raising a family, and the math simply does not make sense anymore. You are running as fast as you can on the treadmill that is constantly accelerating, and you are exhausted. I want you to stop and listen to me very carefully, because what I am about to tell you is the single most important financial realization you will ever have. The reason you are struggling is not because you are not working hard enough. The reason you are struggling is because the rules you were taught were completely fabricated. They were not designed to make you wealthy. They were designed to keep you functioning as a compliant cog in an economic machine that is engineered to extract your wealth. Nobody told you the truth about money because the system relies on your ignorance to survive. The greatest illusion in the modern financial world is the concept of safety. From the time you are a child, you are conditioned to believe that holding cash in a bank account is the ultimate form of financial security. It feels safe. The numbers on the screen do not fluctuate wildly like the stock market. You have a government guarantee that your money will not disappear. But this is a devastating lie. Your money is disappearing. It is just disappearing invisibly. Every single day, your purchasing power is being silently siphoned away by a force of the government. But inflation is not some unpredictable weather event or an accident of the economy. It is a deliberate structural feature of the fiat currency system. It is a hidden tax that is levied upon the middle class and the poor without their consent and without a vote. When a government has accumulated massive amounts of debt that it can never mathematically repay through tax, it only has one option. It must print more currency to devalue the debt. In doing so, it devalues every single dollar you have worked so hard to save. I have often described inflation as a gigantic corporate tapeworm. That tapeworm consumes its requisite daily diet of investment dollars regardless of the health of the host organism. It does not care how hard you work for your money. It does not care about your retirement plan. And it does not care about your family. It simply eats away at your purchasing power relentlessly, year after year, decade after decade. When you leave your money sitting in a bank account earning 1 or 2% interest, while the true rate of inflation is closer to 5 or 7%, you are not preserving your wealth. You are guaranteeing its destruction. You are locked in a mathematical certainty of becoming poorer over time. The people at the top of the economic pyramid understand this perfectly. They know that cash is not a store of value. Cash is a melting ice cube. They do not hold their wealth in currency. They use currency as a temporary medium of exchange to acquire real productive assets. They buy farmland, they buy businesses, they buy real estate. They buy pieces of the global economy that will inherently adjust their prices upward as the value of the currency falls. If you do not understand this fundamental truth, you will spend your entire life trading your irreplaceable time for a currency that is designed to lose value. You will be playing a game where the referee is constantly changing the score against you. You must wake up to the reality that in this system, playing it safe is the most dangerous thing you can possibly do. The financial establishment does not want you to know this, because as long as you keep your money in their institutions, they can lend it out, invest it, and generate massive returns for themselves, paying you pennies in exchange for the privilege of using your capital. They need you to remain asleep. This brings us to the second massive lie that you have been sold, the lie of complexity. If you turn on financial television or open a business magazine, you are immediately bombarded with an overwhelming amount of noise. You see flashing charts, frantic analysts yelling about the next market crash, complex derivatives, and a language that seems designed to confuse you. This complexity is entirely intentional. The financial industry spends billions of dollars every year to create the illusion that investing is a dark art, a sophisticated science that can only be understood by people with high-end degrees wearing expensive suits. They want you to feel intimidated. They want you to look at the market and think, I could never understand this. I need to pay a professional to do it for me. But the reality is that Wall Street does not get rich by generating superior returns for you. Wall Street gets rich by extracting fees from your capital. And the easiest way to extract fees is to convince you that you need to be constantly active. They want you buying, selling, trading, shifting allocations, and reacting to every single piece of breaking news. Because every time you move your money, a broker takes a cut. Activity is the lifeblood of the financial industry, but it is the absolute enemy of the individual investor. I have said many times that the stock market is simply a highly efficient device for transferring money from the impatient to the patient. You do not need to be a genius to build enormous wealth. You do not need to know how to read complex charts or predict macroeconomic trends. You simply need to understand the profound power of inactivity. In 2007, I made a public bet of $1 million against Protégé Partners, a very sophisticated hedge fund management firm. I bet them that over a 10-year period, a unmanaged S&P 500 index fund would outperform their elite portfolio of highly actively managed hedge funds. These were some of the smartest people in finance, charging massive fees, utilizing complex trading algorithms and insider research. And what happened over those 10 years? The simple index fund completely obliterated them. It was not even close. The boring passive strategy generated a compounded return of over 8% annually, while the sophisticated hedge funds struggled to break 2% after their exorbitant fees were deducted. The lesson there is profound. And it is a lesson that Wall Street prays you never learn. You do not need them. You can capture the entire growth of the American economy by simply buying a broad market index fund and doing absolutely nothing for 30 years. The hardest part of investing is not knowing what to buy. It is having the emotional discipline to sit on your hands when everyone else is panicking. When the market drops 20% and the news anchors are screaming that the sky is falling, your instinct will be to sell, to act, to do something to protect yourself. That is the moment the wealth transfer happens. The impatient investors sell their assets at a massive discount, and the patient investors, the ones who understand that market crashes are simply clearance sales, scoop up those assets and hold them for the inevitable recovery. If you want to be wealthy, you must ignore the noise. You must understand that the people urging you to trade frequently are not trying to make you rich. They are trying to pay for their own yachts using your commissions. True wealth is built through profound boredom. You buy a slice of productive businesses, you reinvest the dividends, and you go back to living your life, letting the compounding machine work quietly in the background. This truth is so simple that most people reject it. They believe that massive wealth must require massive effort and complexity, but in finance, simplicity always wins. But the deception does not stop at Wall Street. The entire structure of modern society is built on a fundamental misunderstanding of what risk actually is. You have been conditioned to believe that investing in the stock market is a high-risk gamble, a place where you can lose everything if things go wrong. Meanwhile, you are told that leaving,
Oh, you can do that.
So I've been doing what he's talking about on there since about 2002.
Are you serious? Smart.
leaving the
Smart.
county or taking
And
on
you know,
massive
he
debt
he
to
started
buy a new
doing all
car
this and
or a
then
bigger house
he didn't really
is
start
a safe
making
and normal path. This
his
is a complete
millions
inversion
until
of
he was
reality.
50.
Let me explain what true risk is.
Yes.
True risk
It's a
is tying your
long-term
entire
thing.
financial survival to a
We've been
single source
doing
of
it. You've
income.
been doing it since
Your job.
2002.
True risk is taking on consumer
I
debt at
wish.
18% interest to buy clothing and electronics that will be worthless in 3 years. True risk is holding 100% of your wealth in a fiat currency that is mathematically
It's the
engineered
most.
to lose its purchasing
And
power
it's super low
every single day.
cost. You go buy
When you buy a broad
500
index fund, you
total
are buying
index,
a fractional
total market
ownership
index.
stake in the 500 most
If you want, you
powerful
can take
and profitable
take and
companies in
split
the
and do
United
one that's like
States.
a bond index.
You are betting on human
20%.
ingenuity,
That
technological progress, and the
do it
fundamental
all
drive
right.
of businesses to
Right.
generate profit.
It's all
Yes,
great.
the market will experience violent drops. It will crash
Know something
20,
about to be
30, or even 40% during economic panics. But over a 20-year timeline, the risk of those companies
He said, don't let him know
to
too.
generate value is incredibly close to zero. The real danger is not
Yeah,
volatility.
nothing.
The real danger is inflation.
He don't know
Yet
yet.
millions of people willingly accept the guaranteed loss of purchasing power in their bank accounts because they are terrified of the temporary volatility in the market. This is the third great lie, the lie of status. Society has convinced you that wealth is something you can see.
You heard
We
that?
look at the
Now
man
you-
driving the brand new luxury car,
plants a date
wearing
tree,
a
you
designer
see-
watch,
see the fruit.
and living in a massive
Yeah.
house, and we assume he's
Yeah.
wealthy.
Takes
We
longer
strive
than
to
you'll be
emulate it.
alive for it
We
to
take
bear
out
fruit.
loans and leverage our
And that's
future
it,
labor.
but that's
to acquire
biblical
visual
though.
markets of
It
success.
really is
But
biblical.
what nobody tells
That
you
might actually
is
be
that true wealth.
It's either from the.
True wealth
it's
is
like
the
a-
money that was not spent on the
I wanna say
luxury
it's
car.
like in,
True wealth is the portfolio of assets quietly compounding in the background, generating passive
That's the
income
idea.
that gives you the freedom to choose how you spend your time. The man driving the expensive car is often highly leveraged, drowning in monthly payments, and terrified of losing his job because he is living paycheck to paycheck at a higher income level. He is a slave to his lifestyle. Meanwhile, the true millionaire is often the person driving a 10-year-old Honda, living in a modest neighborhood.
So
and
you
quietly
so
buying
do
assets
you
every time the market
500 index on
I have lived in the
every-
exact same house since
whatever
1950.
broker
I bought it
you're
for $31,500.
you're working with,
I do
yeah.
not need a $50
But what if you
mansion
work
to prove my worth to anyone.
Yeah, they got
And
And there's other ones out there.
Money you do not even
500
have.
indexes
You suddenly
are
unlock a massive amount of
just
capital
US stock
that you can
market, but you can get
afford
ones
buying
that
your
are
actual freedom.
a little
You
more
must stop
global
viewing money
as
as a
well.
mechanism to buy things and start viewing it
That's
as
it.
raw material to build your financial
The other
wealth.
ones that are really good are
Every
things
time you
like
buy a
target funds.
depreciating asset,
You say, okay,
you
I
are
want this money
voluntarily
in 30
putting
years.
yourself further back in the race. You are trading
So
your
you buy
future
like a
freedom
target
for temporary
2055 or
validation.
something like
The
that.
system is designed to trigger your insecurities and make you feel
That's
like
just
you are
what you
never
put money
enough
into.
unless you are constantly upgrading
Like
your
you said,
lifestyle.
just,
You must reject this
whatever
programming
you can spend a
entirely.
month,
You must become comfortable looking perfectly average
20,
to
50,
the outside
100,
world
500,
while you are secretly building an
just
empire.
automatically put that
You
in
must
there.
also understand the concept of productive assets versus non-productive assets.
But the
A
key is
non-productive
setting up as
asset
a
is
Roth
something
IRA.
that requires the next person to pay more for it than you did in order for you
See,
to
all
make
that
money.
stuff be
So
sounding
Roth,
like
a Roth IRA,
These things do not produce anything.
it does
They
not,
just sit
that
there
money does not get taxed
for a
when you
greater
pull it
pool
out.
to come along.
Mm.
A productive
Regular
asset,
IRA or a 401k from your
Is
employer,
something
when you
that
draw, that's
delivers
covered income.
a dividend,
And then you gotta
a
pay
crop,
tax on
or
it.
a product to the world, regardless of what the currency is doing.
So,
if you
because
own a
the
farm,
reason that there's a tax on that
It
is
will
because
grow
it comes
corn
off the top
every year. If
of
you own
your
a
earned
factory,
income for a
it will
year.
produce goods every year. This is the
And,
core of my philosophy.
People
I
would
want
say,
to
oh,
own
you
the
know,
productive
okay, I
power
made
of the world.
$100,000
This is
this
the only
year,
true
but I
defense against
invested
massive
20,000. So
and their
really, my income is
You're standing at a
$80,000.
critical juncture in economic
And then you only have to pay
As we
you
move
get
deeper
taxed
into
at an $80,000 rate.
2026 and beyond,
Well, all you're
the
doing there is
consequences of
deferring.
decades of
You're just
reckless
putting the
government
pain
borrowing
off.
and money printing are coming to
But
a
if
head.
you go with the Roth,
National debt
I made
is at
$100,000.
levels that were once
Pay tax
considered
on
mathematically
$100,000.
impossible. global
that
supply
money
chain
is
is
now gone
fracturing,
into
and the cost of basic necessities is
whatever
continuing to
amount you
climb.
invested.
The rules of the game are
That's
changing
in
rapidly,
an account.
and if you rely on the
And
outdated
when you
advice of the
withdraw it,
past,
you
you
already
will
paid
be
your tax
wiped
on it.
out. You
You
can
paid
no
because
longer
you
rely on a corporate pension.
You paid
You can
because
no
you
longer
said,
trust that
I
the
got
government will provide a
$100,000.
comfortable
So you
safety
put
net
tax
for your
on it.
retirement.
Because the tax rate's only gonna
Is
go up. Sooner or later, the US government, all the politicians are gonna have to
and
make a hard
nobody
decision.
is coming to save
They
you.
have to raise taxes.
But this is not a reason to panic.
No,
This
there's no
is a reason
choice.
to prepare. The greatest wealth transfers in human history always happen during periods of economic disruption. While the masses are distracted by political theater and temporary crises, the financially educated are quietly positioning themselves to benefit from the chaos. Your objective right now must be absolute financial profit. You must opt out of the consumer base.
That is not the basis. That is not.
You must brutally.
That it sound like the basis. See, that's when you think something like that is the basis, you be like, dang, wait.
Well, I mean, I learned shit all the time. Like, I didn't know, like, I got, the like,
You need
401k money and stuff, like, you apparently have to, like,
real
draw at
goods and
certain amounts,
services,
certain rates.
businesses that have
Once
pricing
you get
power.
older, so like, even then, like, you can be like 85 and all of a sudden you got a big tax bill.
When a company produces something that people desperately need,
When you
whether
do
it
have
is
money in a
food,
regular IRA or 401k,
energy,
you gotta
or essential technology,
transfer that over to a
the
Roth,
value of that company
take the tax hit
will
now.
rise to match the
But now
devaluation of
it's
the currency.
back in the
By
stock
owning
market
those
or
assets,
whatever.
you
So,
insulate
like, I
yourself
take-
from the